About 384 years ago from today, on the 8th of January 1642, the great scientist Galileo Galilei passed away. And in the very same year, on the 25th of December 1642, on Christmas Day, in Woolsthorpe, England, a child was born who would completely change the way science and scientists. He would go on to become one of the greatest and most influential scientists who ever lived. That child was Sir Isaac Newton. Newton's father had died 3 months before his birth. At the time, England was burning in the flames of civil war. Chaos, disease, and death were everywhere. The plague loomed constantly, and people genuinely believed the end of the world was near. In 1644, when Isaac Newton was just 3 years old, his mother Hannah Ayscough married a wealthy clergyman named Barnabas Smith and left young Newton behind with his grandmother. This event left a deep psychological scar on Newton's mind. He felt rejected by his own family. He hated his stepfather so intensely that once, in his diary, Newton wrote that he had wished to burn his mother and stepfather alive in their house. As a child, Newton was forced into farming, but his true talent was not in agriculture. It was in learning and discovery. His mother wanted him to manage the family farm, but his uncle William Ayscough and his school headmaster Henry Stokes recognized that this boy's future did not lie in fields, but in the world of ideas. They convinced his mother to let him study. In 1661, Newton enrolled at Trinity College, Cambridge University. He entered as a sizar, a student who paid for his education by serving wealthier students. It was a humiliating position, but Newton accepted it because he was hungry for knowledge. At Cambridge, he met Professor Isaac Barrow. Barrow recognized Newton's genius and guided him away from traditional Aristotelian philosophy toward modern mathematics and science. Newton studied the works of Descartes, Galileo, and Kepler. He read, experimented, and questioned relentlessly, day and night. In 1665, the bubonic plague struck England, forcing Cambridge University to close. Newton returned to Woolsthorpe. This period became the most creative and productive phase of his life. Over the next 18 months, Newton made discoveries that laid the foundation of modern science. He developed the basic principles of calculus. He experimented with light and color, discovering that white light is made up of 7 colors. He began formulating ideas about motion and gravity, but Newton was extremely secretive. He kept these discoveries to himself, fearing theft or criticism. To understand the nature of light, Newton performed experiments that seem shocking by today's standards. He inserted a thick needle between his eyeball and the back of his eye, pressing it to observe how pressure created colored patterns. Using prisms, he discovered that sunlight could be split into 7 colors. This directly contradicted the popular belief that light was pure and indivisible. In 1668, Newton used his theories of light to build a new type of telescope. Traditional telescopes used lenses and were large and heavy. Newton used mirrors, creating the first reflecting telescope, only 6 inches long but 40 times more powerful than existing designs. When the Royal Society, Europe's most prestigious scientific institution, saw it, they were stunned. In 1672, Newton was elected a Fellow of the Royal Society. Encouraged, he submitted his paper on light and color, but the response crushed him. Robert Hooke, a leading scientist of the time, criticized Newton's work, calling the experiments unclear. Newton took this as a personal attack. He considered Hooke a lifelong enemy and vowed never to publish again. He tried to resign from the Royal Society and withdrew from the scientific community entirely. Between 1679 and 1684, Newton disappeared into isolation. He devoted himself to alchemy, the mysterious pursuit of turning metals into gold and uncovering life's secrets. He spent thousands of hours experimenting with dangerous substances like mercury, often working through the night. He also studied the Bible intensely, developing religious views that challenged the doctrine of the Trinity. In 1684, astronomer Edmund Halley visited Newton and asked, "If the sun's gravity follows an inverse square law, what shape would planetary orbits be?" Newton replied instantly, "Ellipses." When asked how he knew, Newton said, "I have calculated it." This conversation led to one of the most important books ever written in science, Philosophia Naturalis Principia Mathematica. Over the next 18 months, Newton worked obsessively, barely sleeping, forgetting to eat, sometimes working without clothes. When Principia was published in 1687, it shook the scientific world. It contained the 3 laws of motion, the law of universal gravitation, mathematical proofs of Kepler's laws, an explanation of tides caused by the moon and the sun. In 1689, Newton entered politics and became a member of Parliament representing Cambridge. He opposed King James II's attempt to impose Catholicism on the university. However, his parliamentary contribution was minimal. Legend says he spoke only once, to ask someone to close a window because it was cold. In 1693, Newton suffered a severe mental collapse. 5 nights without sleep, mercury exposure, and extreme stress caused paranoia. He believed friends were plotting against him. He accused philosopher John Locke of trying to trap him with women and wrote to Samuel Pepys wishing him dead. Later, realizing his errors, he apologized, revealing the fragility of his mental health. In 1696, Newton became Warden of the Royal Mint, a role usually symbolic, but Newton took it seriously. Britain's currency system was collapsing due to counterfeit coins. Newton reformed the entire system, recalled old coins, issued new ones, and personally hunted counterfeiters. Many were eventually executed. After Robert Hooke's death in 1703, Newton became president of the Royal Society, in which a position he held for 24 years. He ruled ruthlessly, ordered the destruction of Hooke's instruments and portraits, seized astronomer John Flamsteed's data and published it without permission, protected his reputation at any cost. In 1712, the bitter dispute between Newton and Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz over the invention of calculus reached its peak. A Royal Society committee ruled in Newton's favor. Later, it was revealed that Newton himself had written the report. Today, historians agree both men developed calculus independently. Newton first, Leibniz better published. In his later years, Newton told biographer William Stuckley how he saw an apple fall in Woolsthorpe. If the apple falls toward Earth, is the moon also falling? The apple hitting his head was added later, but the moment itself was real, showing how ordinary observations can lead to extraordinary discoveries. In his final years, Newton focused on religious writings and biblical prophecy. He died on the 20th of March, 1727, at the age of 84. He was buried in Westminster Abbey, among kings and queens, the first scientist to receive such an honor. His tomb reads, "Let mankind rejoice that such a great ornament of the human race has existed." Newton laid the foundation of modern science. His laws still power engineering, space travel, and physics today. He proved the universe runs on mathematical principles that can be understood. But Newton was more than a scientist. He was complex, brilliant yet arrogant, curious yet suspicious, creative yet vengeful. As Newton himself said, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." Subscribe, like, and comment below.